Terry Clark is being recognized at PSU as Emeritus Achievement Award, and so he will not be here tonight, and Janice Shaver will be here, but she's running late. She'll be here probably in about an hour and a half. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I would like to welcome the guests. We're glad you're here. We always welcome guests. We know this is going to be a contentious time for us, but we're glad you're here. You have a right to speak. We allot 5 minutes per person, and everybody is welcome to stay as long as they want to stay. Brandon Bearden. Sorry about that. I added on to you.
I just want to go ahead and pass this to you. As some of you might have heard, Brenda Sanchez was expected to be terminated this as of June, I believe. I created a petition to fight for her job because I felt she was fired unfairly. So I wanted to deliver this to you. I want to give this to one of you. I have the comments here, 85 comments of support for Brenda, and 506 people from the community and international communities that support Brenda and think that this was wrong. I was a student at ICC for 3 years, and they were the most transformative years of my life. I enjoyed a lot of opportunities and things that made my life better tremendously. The last time I was here speaking to thank you guys for all the opportunities that you gave me. But now I'm here speaking on behalf of a problem that I think really is a disservice to the students at ICC. Recently, the newspaper published an article stating that Brenda Sanchez had been fired because of the disparity in grading in regards to African American students, particularly that they failed at a higher rate. That is why I'm here to implore you to analyze a little more critically. You see, oftentimes many students who make it to developmental courses, these students arrive with a reading level of 3rd graders. It's not their fault, nor is it a racial issue. It's a socioeconomic issue. Poverty disproportionately affects people of color because all things like institutional racism and segregation and effects of slavery that have happened that still affect these people today. What does this mean? Well, for one, it means that many of these students are going to fail. Many teachers I've talked to who work with developmental English students tell me that even after an entire semester of working diligently with these kids, they may read at a 7th grade level, but they're still not ready for college. 8 weeks is not enough time, and colleges like ICC will require you to fail over and over again until you can just get it. But that's not likely to happen, as many people can fail the class 3 times and drop out because they don't feel like they're ready to do it. Things like this have to be considered when firing a professor. We must also consider the following 2 issues. First, does every student who failed Brenda's class have a case against the college now? Second, can any student of color who took a class from Professor Sanchez and failed it, can they appeal their grades after this whole scandal? Is there something going to be done to reprimand what's happened, if this is truly what happened? Also, does every professor who works at ICC currently need to count how many black students they pass so as not to fail too many? Is the message we are giving professors that they can lose their job by grading fairly if it happens to fail black people at a higher rate than white people? Is the solution to pass more students to avoid this problem, whether they deserve it or not? And these are the things we have to think about. You've been presented with some statistics that help you make this decision. I'd like to point out that on a graphic that points out the disparity on grades, the increments measured to show that disparity are at a lower number and measurement than the other graphs that make it look like it is at a higher angle, when really it's not as high as an angle as it is. It's just shown to make it look like there's a greater disparity. Very clearly, this is designed to make the graph look steeper rather than show that there's hardly an incline at all. Not only is there that issue, but comparing her to 2 other professors is like comparing to apples to oranges, because the data uses 2 professors who very clearly teach upper-level English courses. The kinds of classes that these developmental students may never see. Of course, less students fail in general, less so at those levels. The students who make it to those classes are more equipped with tools to pass a class, such as English Comp 1. Another thing. Were questions asked about these same students who failed attendance and performance rates? Were their performance rates and their attendance taken into consideration? Or were you given what you were given and made a decision based off that? Did you ask questions? It is my understanding that there wasn't any questions, that the most obvious thing to do when discussing something so serious as firing is to ask more questions about this subject. Lastly, about Brenda's character. Brenda at one point was in charge of the international students. She let people of color live in her home at discounted rates so they could continue their education. Brenda regularly allows international and American people of color to come into her home to work in PTK to get help on classwork. I, as a student, many people I know will have a hard time recommending ICC to our friends and colleagues if this goes through. After all, if a professor is fired for the performance of their students, how could you suggest such a school? Brenda is not a racist by any definition of the word, and we know this, you know this. Many internationals and people of color, as well as 500 people who have signed that petition, know this to be true. Please do the right thing and give Brenda her job back.
Kristen Torrey.
I also have a speech ability, and my name's Kristen Torrey. I'm a student here at ICC, a non-traditional student. I also live in Montgomery County and have my entire life, and I vote. So I've known Brenda for the whole 12 years she's lived here. I actually was friends with her daughter when she first moved to town. In that 12 years, I'm going to stick to my script because I'll get mad, so just a second. Okay, so I've known Brenda Sanchez for the 12 years that she has lived in Independence and taught at this school. When I heard she'd been suspended and was facing termination charges of racism, I was first shocked and then really angry. Brenda is one of the most caring and supportive people I know to everyone. She's never judged or graded anyone based on the color of their skin. In these 12 years, I've known her to reach out and help the students, all of them, that she possibly could, even offering cheaper housing, like Braden mentioned, to students who need a hand. These students and friends of Brenda living in her house have been from all over the world, and a lot of them have been African American. Does that sound like a racist to you? Because it really doesn't to me. There are obvious issues facing not only this school, but nearly all establishments of higher learning in our country. As members of the school board and as president of a junior college, I'm sure that I don't have to tell you about the lack of materials and teachers in the poorest of our public schools. I'm certain that I also don't have to tell you that statistically, these areas and schools mostly consist of African Americans. This issue goes way deeper than Brenda. The fact that she has failed more African Americans than students of other races does not reflect poorly on her, but on our failure as a country to properly educate and prepare our students equally. This information that was presented to you compared Brenda to other teachers in an attempt to show you that she is graded unfairly. But I ask you to revisit that information and ask yourselves if this is truly a fair comparison. I also ask you to consider the idea that maybe Brenda isn't the issue when looking at this information. Couldn't the same data be used to show that another teacher is unfairly inflating the grades of African Americans? Without factoring in all of the raw data, without seeing the examples of papers turned in and attendance records, without these students being required to turn in the exact same assignments, how could you be so sure? With all of that in consideration, my last question is this. Why do you think that this information has been presented to you in the way that it is? Why would a teacher be facing such a horrible accusation as racism if it isn't true? This is something I have my suspicions on, but as for now, I can't prove them. But as board members, your jobs are to ask those questions and to pay close attention before submitting a vote to terminate a really good teacher, so please don't fail us again.
Kathy Kelly.
My name is Kathy Kelly. I live with Brenda Sanchez, and I have lived with Brenda for 4 years. We have had African Americans, and I'm going to cry. Don't know. We've had African Americans live in our home. Brenda dated an African American. Her son is roommates with an African American. Brenda indiscriminately, when she heard that there was a member of the athletic team, which I will not name which one, was washing his socks up every night, discriminately gave that team socks out of her own pocket. One student last semester, I think it was last semester, Val can verify this, maybe the year before, could not afford to come back for their next semester from where she was from, and Brenda paid the expenses for that trip. Last week, I am also a taxpayer and a non-traditional student, and I have attended Brenda's classes. She gives every opportunity in class and office hours, and assigns office hours for the students to come to her, and they don't show up. They sleep in class. They come to class not prepared. They're disruptive. Headphones in. They play on their phone. They don't come to class. They don't do their assignments, and she's expected to pass them. I Because I am a student here, I talk to faculty, staff, and students on a daily basis. Faculty and staff I've heard from that do have statements on some of these cards up here, and they do fear for their jobs under this administration. Some of the students I talk to also have statements on here. They also fear. The only one student that did not fear repercussions said to me it was the right thing to do, and I went and talked to the dean. Last week, because it's so loud in the trio lab, student services lab sometimes, because of the students, and because Miss Mydosh has a class adjacent to that which she brings her small child to, and if the baby cries, even in joy, I can't imagine a student trying to learn in that situation, but it's disrupting. So after a class, I decided to stay. When there was in a room, there was nobody in. Across the hall, there was another class that was so disruptive, so rude, so loud, that I got up to shut the door, not only in that classroom, but the classroom I was in. I was so upset that I sat there and cried. I decided to go outside and have a cigarette, and I thought to myself, who do I go to? I can't go to Barwick for fear of repercussions. I can't go to the board for fear of repercussions. I can't go to the coaches for fear of repercussions. So as a taxpayer at this time, I would like to ask for the resignation of the board, the president, the head of HR, and the head of the athletic department. Thank you.
I don't want to slaughter your name. It's Odalis?
Odalis.
Odalis. Okay, Odalis Martinez.
My name is Odalis Martinez. If you want to know my full name is very long. You won't even remember it. I am an international student here at ICC. I am from Venezuela. If you don't know where is Venezuela, it's in South America. And I also running. I am a PTK member. I am vice president. Well, I'm leaving my position this year. But I'm running for international president this year. I'm going to represent ICC, my chapter, and Kansas at international level. So I'm very happy I'm here to talk to you guys. I have been here for almost 3 years. I'm going to graduate in May. Yes, in May. And I met Brenda in my second semester, I think, when she asked me to join Phi Theta Kappa because I had a good GPA. And I took her class, and I didn't want to take her class because I don't remember who told me she was like a top professor, and I was like, oh, and I was like shaking. And I was like, I don't want to fail that class. You know, English is my second language, so I was like very afraid to take her class, so that's why I enrolled in other class, but something happened, I ended up on her class. So when I was on her class, there were all kind of students. They were women, they were men, they were international students. There were 2 international students, including me, and they were athletes, that were not athletes, they were white, black, yellow people, all colors. I remember when we were, and this was called one, she doesn't teach come to. So when we were working on our papers, she will ask us to work with partners. And she knew that I was doing good at her class, and a lot of professors tells me that I do very good on their classes. And she told me that she knew that I was doing good on her class. And she put me a partner who was a African American, and he was an athlete. So why would she do that? Why she would put me to help him if she's racist? And she also told them that DeBron, the other international student, and I, and Kerry Barrera, she's like English, like she can help at the tutoring center. She told all of them, like, I mean, everybody, just in the class. She just, hey, Alalis, you can go. No, everybody. She said in front of all the students that if they needed help, they can go to the tutoring center or they can go to her office. And she told all of us what was her office. So another thing that I want to point out is, like, since I'm running for international, I needed to write a speech. And the speech is about the vision of justice. So I was freaking out about how to write the speech. And I was like, Brenda, I need you to help me. And she was like, let's do some brainstorming. And I was, let's do it. So I was at her office. And she was like, okay, Alex, what do you think about justice? And I was like, I don't know, should I talk about, well, in Venezuela there are like a lot of things going on, you know. We have a lot of economic problems, and I don't see we have a lot of support. So I was like talking about that. And she was like, what about the minorities? There are minorities in Venezuela? And I was like, I didn't think about that. I was like, I don't think they are. Well, and she was like, you don't have Nazi Americans in Venezuela? I was like, yes, we do, but we don't see them very often. But yes, they're out on the streets, and I think they're poor people. And nobody pays attention to them. And she was like, what about racism? Do you experience racism in Venezuela? And I was like, we really don't. I have experienced that here and in this college, but not in Venezuela. Because we don't care about if you're Chinese, and we have a lot of Chinese people. We don't care if you're Chinese, or if you are Arabic, I don't know how to say it. But we don't care. We just live with everybody. We just joke and we're sassy people, I guess, but one part of us. But the thing is, when we kept talking about this brainstorming, she asked me about racism, and I was like, I mean, we don't have black people. We just have all the colors, and we don't care. We don't even think about what the color of the skin. So she was like, okay, because she wanted me to think if we have racism. And then I just kept talking about, well, my mom cannot get a job. She got retired, and my guy got a brain stroke, and they don't have these possibilities to get a job, and both of them are without a job. And she was like, well, that's ageism. So that is the issue, and we have to solve it, and we have to solve all those things. And she told me that here when I told her that people don't care about the Native Americans, Native people from Venezuela, I was like, I think they don't even care that the way they live. That's what I say. And I'm sorry I say that. And you know what she responded to me? She was like, you're wrong. They care about having a better life. They haven't had the opportunity. And she said, and it's the same way here with the Native Americans and with the Black Americans. Like they just don't know the way they live, because sometimes they don't have the opportunities. They don't have opportunities to get the high levels, right? So this is the person that we are calling racist, and I don't understand. So I was learning about managers. I'm studying business, and I was learning about managing and about businesses and all that kind of stuff, and about how the managers and the upper level people has to look at the people that they have behind and the ones that are controlling and leading. So one thing that I think we have to look at is the way we're performing in our college. Are we telling the teachers or whatever employee, hey, we're looking at this, and I think we're going to give you a feedback on how you're performing, and this is the way you can work better. This is the way you can perform better. And probably you didn't know, but you're doing this. Did somebody tell her, or does somebody tell the teachers that the students are complaining about them? Because I have heard a lot of students, like I tutor, and I hear all the time, like every day that I'm tutoring somebody, I just don't like this professor. This professor is blah, 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 blah. And I hear complaints every day, you know, and I'm like very positive people, everybody knows me, knows that I'm very positive people, and I try to turn that around. And one day, I remember I had complaints about one math professor. And guess what I did? I went to talk to him and say, I heard these complaints about these students. So you know this is going on. So you know you can make a change and you can be a better teacher for them.
Thank you for your words. Thank you. We have one, and I can read it. Is it Regina West? Regina. Regina? I'm sorry, Regina.
I am also a non-traditional student. This is my first year coming back to college, and I was enrolled in one of Ms. Sanchez's classes. I cannot tell you, I think there's supposed to be 12 of us in the class. I have never seen once this semester every student in that class. We have students meandering in 10, 15 minutes late, getting up, leaving, sleeping, playing on their phones, playing on their computers, listening to headphones. I have seen many times, we had an essay due, and Ms. Sanchez gave them back to some of the students and gave them a second chance. Gave them a third chance, a fourth chance. She even said, you know, my office hours are this, you can come in and help. I can come in at night and do it. We can do tutoring sessions, whatever, to get your grade. And they didn't care. They don't care. And it's just mind-boggling that these kids think that they can just do whatever, come in late, sleep in class, leave in the middle of class. What are they going to do when they get a real job?
Exactly.
I mean, you know, your employer is not going to put up with this much longer, you know. And there's a few of us in our class that have actually done the work. But after spring break, when the new professor came in, she basically told everybody, anybody that has a 0, I'll basically give you a grade. Just turn something in, I'll grade it lightly. That's not fair for those of us that busted our butts all semester to do the work.
It's not fair for them.
And I mean, Ms. Sanchez gave these students that wasn't turning in their work, wasn't doing the work, more than ample opportunity to turn their assignments in. And now, our teacher, like she said, brings her child into class. That is very disruptive. I mean, the child cries, she tries to soothe her. I mean, she was even late for class because she had to change the kid's diaper. I mean, that's taken out of our time as well. But, I mean, I wrote letters to the editor and everything. I just don't think it's fair. I mean,
There's no one to go to.
You don't want to put forth the effort, but yet you want the grades. And it's just really, I mean, I've never seen this before. I mean, coming back into school, I mean, before you showed up for class, you respected your teachers, you did your homework, but now it seems like, I talked to my friend, I said, basically now it seems like if you play with balls, you get a free grade. And that's basically what I'm seeing.
It's the end of our open hearing. I want to say for the board that we were given lots of information.
both on why they would be canceling baseball and why they presented us with the idea of terminating Brenda Sanchez. It was not, and because there was going to be a court case, of course I can't disclose that information to you, but I can tell you, we didn't take it lightly. None of it. Now, there were things that we've learned about these kids not being able to play and sign with anybody else that we might not have known. And yet, at the same time, we did due diligence. And I am sorry that it has stirred up so much angst and so much unhappiness. That's never our intention. We want everything to run smoothly, I guarantee you. This is the last place any of us want to find ourselves. We do need your input. We welcome your input. We will try to get information, answers to these questions to you through the media, maybe through our website here at the college. And, you know, sometimes a little bit of information doesn't tell the whole story. And that can be both in what you're getting and what we're getting. And so we will strive to answer more questions and to narrow a lot of this down. I don't know that anything will change on the decisions that were made, but I want you to know that we are receptive to your input. We want your input. And thank you for coming. And you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting. We'll probably be here for about 2 or 3 hours. I was way off.